It is important to bear in mind that this is the first systematic attempt to describe the new geopolitical landscape that the renewable energy transformation is creating much faster and in a more comprehensive way than anybody could have predicted 10 years ago. If anyone would have told you at that time that on the same day China would take on the presidency of IRENA and been highlighted by a global commission as a potential renewable superpower in the new geopolitical landscape, I don't think anybody would have believed that possibility. But it is also important that the report describes very clearly that states all over the world, and let's remember that more than half of the states in the world are small and medium-sized countries, now have a real possibility of becoming energy independent. That has never happened before in human history, that there is a technological possibility for a country of any size, however small, like my own country, to become a global energy player through the renewable transformation. So we see, therefore, that the combination of energy independence for countries and what we call the democratization of energy within countries, which means that households, villages, suburbs, cities can decide on their own to become energy independent. Doesn't require a governmental policy any longer. All of this will bring about political change, because when we look at the 20th century, the essence of the fossil fuel system and the existence of big energy companies that have dominated countries and the global economy has had monumental political influences. We even have seen military strategies been based on the existence of fossil fuel resources. That period is soon over because the technological progress and the business advance in reducing cost, as well as the push because of climate and the public will, especially of young people, for clean energy, is bringing about a new world map, a new world, as we call it in the title. So I think the essence of the report is to map this out in a reasonably short text. I mean, some reports are very long, hundreds of pages, but this one is short. It means you can start out with breakfast and finish before lunch, but you come into the afternoon with a new map of the world, a new roadmap of where the world is heading. I think truly in every country of the world, not only the community of leaders, but also community of experts and business executives are still very much influenced by the old 20th century geopolitical map, because the change over to renewables has happened so fast and been so comprehensive that not even the academic community has been able to keep up with the analysis. So therefore, it is very important that the governmental leadership, the policy makers, the business leadership and others can, through this report, realize that there is a new global map of geopolitical power relationships that will impact their own country. And they have to formulate policies and reactions in accordance. That is why, for example, the governments of Germany, government of Norway, government of the United Arab Emirates decided to sponsor and support the Commission, because the governments of these three countries had realized that the world was changing and they needed some guidelines on what was the nature of this change. Well, first of all, when I was growing up, almost every country in the world needed energy from somebody else, whether it was oil or coal. Now many countries, even most countries in the world, have the possibility to reach energy independence. They no longer have to negotiate with either foreign companies or foreign countries about their energy needs in the future. If you look at the history of Europe, even in recent years, you can see the dependence on some neighboring countries for energy supplies has impacted European politics big time. This era is fast disappearing. And let's not forget that more than half of the countries in the world are small or medium-sized countries. That means that the majority of states in the world can now reach an energy platform where they no longer are dependent on others for their energy security. But first of all, you do that by realizing the change is happening, that there are new technologies, that whereas before energy system depended on the resources where they could be found, and there were a relatively small number of countries. Now every country has this potential. So it's a realistic option for the leadership of any country in the world to plan for the future in such a way to take advantage of this renewable energy transformation and thereby change the geopolitical position of that country. No, I think the strength of the Commission is the diversity of experience and the background, because you have within the Commission people who spent a lifetime in the traditional energy sector. You have people who come from the Middle East, from Europe, from Asia, from Latin America, and also from Africa. And you have people who have held ministerial positions and also been business leaders. So it was not given when we started out that the Commission would reach a consensus, and in fact been able to develop this report, especially because the reality of the academic knowledge, or the so-called expert knowledge, was very limited, still is. So even the most advanced academic community can learn a lot from this report. And I said when we introduced it today that to some extent it's a political miracle that such a diverse group of leaders were able to come to a consensus conclusion in this report. But I think that shows the validity of the case, the strength of the case, and the reality of the new geopolitical map which is emerging. No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, there was a very open debate, a very respectful debate. People had different views, different emphases, but everybody listened to what the others were saying. So it was definitely a process where in the beginning, at the first meeting in Berlin, I would say even at the second meeting in Oslo, but as we came to Reykjavik and to Abu Dhabi, it became clear that we had the chance of producing a consensus report. But when we started in Berlin, in the early part of 2018, that was by no means certain.